The Prophetess from Dr. Martin's Guide to New Monsters. My recent travels to India did nothing but affirm this belief. Belief that an individual can predict the future and do so accurately simply because they have an innate ability or talent. Others claim the ability does not exist at all. One round trip ticket, a taxi for one, a room at an inn for one, and I was there. There was Mandwa, in the Junjunu district of India, a town that enjoys a bit of respite from the overpopulation of the surrounding cities. The people are traditional, probably more so than anything else. The center of the town has claim to its market, and each day merchants and tea brewers and shoppers populate its streets, only to pack up each night and make their way there the next morning. But I was not interested in any of their wares or services. I was interested in one woman. They called her the prophetess. She sits on a mat in the corner of the market, and yet she is the most popular vendor there. Men and women travel far and wide to hear her predictions. Some walk away with nothing but their money back. Their aura was off. She was unable to read them. Come again later. But the others walk away with predictions. Prediction that claimed total accuracy. I met with the prophetess late, her last customer. She sat cross-legged and looked up at me. Her head was shaved completely, save for a single thick braid that extended from her scalp and hung by her face. Her eyes searched me quizzically. I did not look like her regular customer, but she was professional nonetheless. Sit, sir, sit. Hear what will come to pass. Hear knowledge before knowledge arrives. It was her classic pitch. You could hear the rehearsal in her voice. I sat down and she examined me closer. American? She asked. Going off script. I nodded. It was no difficult distinction to make. And you wish to know the future? Actually, I responded, I was more interested in your past. She tugged at her braid at this request. My past? Why? What is done is so inconsequential to what would be. She was right back on script again. I am a researcher from America. I would like to hear how you got to where you are. I am willing to pay double, even for the trouble of it all. I held out the money and needed to explain no more. The almighty dollar is a better convincer than I ever was. She reached out and took it. Satisfied, she placed it in her shawl and began to speak again. I am glad to take your money, sir, but I am afraid there's no much to tell you. Begin with your family life, if you would. Are you married? The prophetess touched her head, not her braid this time, but the skin surrounding it. I was, she said, but no longer. What happened? He died. She did not want to speak of it any longer, but I needed more than that. How did he die? He fell ill. We were married for years, many years. We had 2 sons together. And are they still living? Yes, she said, surprised. Yes, of course. And then, not without a bit of pride in her voice, they live with me. I provide for them. But your husband? Yes, one day he leaves for business, says he needs to go a couple of towns over, will be back in a few days. But when he does return, he was sick, very sick. He hardly seemed the same man. His hair was in tassels, his beard was in clumped braids, and he had a wild fever. Hallucinations. I tried to take care of him, but it got difficult. He would become violent, threaten me and the children. He was paranoid, mad. One morning I am making his bed and I found a knife under his pillow. It was then I knew the children were in danger. And what did you do? I moved my children out. They stayed with their grandmother. I looked after him though. I tried to nurse him back to health, but it did nothing. He passed and I caught the sickness soon after. But you survived? Hardly. The disease ravaged me, but it was the men afterwards that almost killed me. What men? Of the town. They claimed I had taken my husband's children from him, that I had let him die. They took me to the street and beat me, shaved my head. I am a disgraced woman. She toyed with the remaining braid. They shaved it all but this. She tugged on it again. Why did they leave it? They could not cut it. Nothing could tear it, regardless of what they used. They changed from violent to frightened. They left me to die on the street. She looked up at me and smiled. But again I survived. And what was that when you started to prophesy? Yes, it started oddly enough. I would hear predictions in my head, whispered and monotone, but about those I passed on the street. It went on until I couldn't stand it anymore. I began to tell people as I passed them, people I have never even met before. And when they started coming true, of course, more started to come. I began to charge them to provide for my family, and that brings us to where we are. And are you able to tell all people? She shook her head, tugging on her braid again. No, she said. Sometimes I hear it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes a customer goes and comes back, and I am suddenly able. What about your children? Have you ever tried it with them? Oh, yes, plenty of times. But there was never a prediction, not yet anyway. There was a pause. I hear it for you. Would you like to know? The future is tempting, but I knew better. No, I said instantly. No, thank you. I think I have got enough for tonight. Thank you. She nodded at me as I stood, telling her I would try and visit her again the next night. Later that night, there was an uproar. When I moved out of my room to see what was the matter, I saw that the men of the town had dragged her out of her home and tied her to a pole in the middle of the square. I moved out as quickly as I could, trying to ascertain what was happening, what she was being punished for. After some time of trying to converse with some very angry men in broken English, I finally got the story. The prophetess had smothered both her children in their sleep. I was able to get her somehow through the crowd. Her eyes shined with the hope when she saw me, and she grasped me by the hands tight. Please help me. You need to help me. They are going to kill me. She held my hands to her face and pleaded with me. They are saying you killed them. They are saying you smothered your children. She didn't respond, but continued to weep in my hands. I pulled them back slowly and looked at her. Did you do it? I asked quietly. She got silent, looked up at me and nodded. I went into the room tonight after they had fallen asleep. There they were, my two perfect angels sleeping peacefully in their beds. And then I heard it. Heard what? I asked. Their future, what they were going to do, how they would be, what they would suffer in their lives. And I had to. I did them a favor. A mercy, sir, a mercy. But you killed them. Don't you see that? Your own children, you killed them. She pursed her lips together, stopped crying, and looked down at the floor instead. What is done is inconsequential to what would be, she whispered. It was the last thing she said. They took her, the mob, screaming that she was a devil and burning her alive. Tradition after all. I stood by the pyre until it was over, until the flames died down, until there was nothing but ashes and a charred skeleton. A skeleton with a braid attached. There was a hissing sound, and the braid wiggled once, twice, then it got erect, disentangled itself. Spindly legs grew silently from it, sides lifting it from the ground. Its hundreds of legs moved, skittering forward, back, and then forward again towards me. The prophetess then was not the woman herself, but the creature before me. The creature is symbiotic. It has mutually beneficial relationship with its host, or rather with those who survive its bonding process. It lives by attaching itself to a host, but gives them its own ability, a foretelling of the future. The prophetess moved its head up at me, a million tiny teeth in a spiral lining its throat. A voice spoke then, in my head. It was as if my own thoughts had been hijacked and a foreign was directing them to form words that didn't originate with me. It was like the passing thoughts as one falls asleep, but more directed to form one sentence into another. Michael Margin, I can tell you things only you would know. It took a couple of its spindly steps towards me. The woman, Michael Margin, you must be wary of her. I pride myself on being a researcher. I do nothing but investigate these creatures, take notes of them, and leave them as they are. I am no monster hunter. But here, staring into the gaping mouth of this monster, this creature that had just manipulated a woman into killing her own children, was now trying to manipulate me, I knew I couldn't now. The creature may have been able to foresee the future, a power nothing should have, but it did not foresee me lifting myself and crushing it under my foot. It was deflating, and then there was nothing but silence. Perhaps it was just the quiet of town that was long from walking, but to me it was the golden silence of an unknown future. I left soon thereafter to see what new and terrible things I could find.